Bully hits black girl at school. Didn't know her dad's a ruthless crime boss. The slap echoed louder than anyone expected. It wasn't just the sound. It was the weight behind it, the silence that followed, and the disbelief that hung in the air like a fog no one knew how to move through. Jade Monroe stood frozen, one hand clutched to her burning cheek, her backpack hanging halfway off her shoulder. Her wide brown eyes stared straight at the girl in front of her. Chloe Whitman, blonde, blue-eyed, and born into everything Jade wasn't. "You don't talk to me like that," Chloe hissed, her voice trembling. Not from fear, but the thrill of humiliation delivered so publicly. "You think just because you got into this school you belong here?" Jade didn't respond. She didn't move. She could feel at least a dozen eyes watching, some horrified, some entertained, all too afraid or too complicit to speak up. The hallway was filled with lockers and echoes, but no voices now. Everyone knew Chloe's dad had power, money, political connections. That bought silence. But what no one knew, what no one had the faintest clue about, was who Jade's father was. That mistake would cost them. Earlier that morning, nothing about Jade's routine had hinted the day would unravel like this. She stepped off the city bus in her thrifted jeans and faded Converse, her hair pulled into a neat bun. Her mother, Talia, had reminded her gently over breakfast, "Keep your head down, focus on your work. You're not here to be liked." Jade had nodded. She was used to the stairs at Hawthorne Prep, where tuition cost more than her mother made in 6 months. Most students didn't know her name. They called her Scholarship Girl when they bothered acknowledging her at all. She walked with purpose, books clutched to her chest, determined to get through another Friday unnoticed. But Chloe didn't let things go unnoticed. Not when Jade got a better grade on the English Lit essay. Not when their shared music teacher praised Jade's solo during rehearsal. "She's playing the victim card," Chloe had muttered the day before to her friend Rachel, loud enough for Jade to hear. "Bet the teacher's just scared of being cancelled." So today, when Jade accidentally brushed past Chloe in the hallway outside the library, spilling her overpriced iced coffee onto the marble floor, it became more than a moment. It became a spectacle. "You're gonna clean this up," Chloe snapped. Jade, already crouching with a tissue, calmly replied, "It was an accident." "You calling me a liar?" "No, I'm saying it wasn't intentional." "That's not the same." And that's when the slap landed. The hallway went silent. Rachel smirked, whispering something into another girl's ear. A few phones went up, but no one dared intervene. Not yet. Jade slowly straightened. Her cheek was still burning, but her voice, when it came, was cold and even. "You're going to regret that," Chloe scoffed. "Please." "What's your mom gonna do? Write a stern letter?" Jade met her eyes. There was something behind her expression that made Chloe pause for the first time. Not fear, not tears. Something quieter. Something older. "My dad doesn't write letters," Jade said. And with that, she walked away. The silence behind her louder than anything else that had come before. Back at home that evening, Jade's mother noticed the mark the second Jade stepped through the apartment door. "What happened?" Jade hesitated. Then she shook her head. "Just school." Talia's eyes narrowed. "You're not going to lie to me." Jade didn't. She told her everything, except one thing. She didn't tell her mother what she planned to do next, because while Talia had worked for years to build a new life, to protect Jade from the shadows of her past, Jade had made her own decision. She went to her room, pulled out her old phone from the hidden compartment in her closet, and scrolled to a contact she hadn't touched in years. It wasn't labeled Dad, just a single letter. M. She hesitated for exactly 3 seconds before she hit call. It rang once. Hey, a deep voice answered. Calm, controlled. It's Jade. A pause. Sweetheart, it's been a long time. She could almost hear the unspoken emotion behind his words. Regret, maybe. Distance. Pain. I need a favor, she said. There was a silence. Not the uncomfortable kind, the kind that signaled attention. I'm listening, he replied. Jade didn't ask if he was busy. She didn't explain what happened. She just said one name. Chloe Whitman. She could feel his mind moving on the other end. She knew exactly what kind of favor he thought she meant. And she knew exactly what kind of favor she was actually asking for. I'm not asking you to hurt anyone, she said quickly. I'm asking you to remind them that I'm not alone. Another pause. Understood. She heard the line disconnect. At Hawthorne Prep the next morning, the parking lot was different. 3 black Escalades pulled up and parked along the curb. No one got out for a full 10 minutes, just tinted windows and silent tension. Whispers spread fast. Who are they? Security? No logos, no plates. Principal Harlan stepped out, his tie already askew, trying to act like everything was fine as he greeted a tall man in an all-black suit emerging from the middle SUV. No one knew his name, but his presence spoke volumes. Chloe's eyes widened from across the quad. Her father wasn't returning her texts. Her friends were silent. Jade walked into school that day with her backpack slung over one shoulder, her cheek nearly healed, and her head held high. She didn't speak to Chloe. She didn't need to, because power didn't always speak in violence. Sometimes it walked quietly beside you, until someone made the mistake of trying to strike. And Chloe? She had just made the biggest mistake of her life. Chloe didn't sleep that night. Not because she was afraid, at least that's what she kept telling herself, but because her phone wouldn't stop lighting up with messages. First came the whispers, screenshots of the Escalades, grainy photos taken from across the quad, voice notes filled with speculation. Then came the TikTok videos, one even slow panning to Jade walking across campus like nothing had happened. The comments were worse. Who is she really? That's not just a regular dad move. Jade got connections? And worst of all, she warned Chloe. Chloe watched the videos over and over, heart racing, fury rising. It wasn't supposed to go like this. Jade was supposed to cry. She was supposed to disappear into the background, back to wherever people like her came from. She wasn't supposed to win. At 3:12 a.m., Chloe messaged her dad. You need to fix this. No reply. By morning, Chloe's usual confidence had splintered. Her makeup was flawless, her outfit pressed and planned. But something in her walk was off. Her steps were sharper. Eyes darted more. She didn't like that people weren't looking at her the same way. There was curiosity now. Hesitation. That made her dangerous. Jade, on the other hand, arrived just like before. Quiet, composed, hoodie half-zipped over her school uniform. She didn't gloat, didn't smile, but she didn't lower her eyes either. Her presence was steady, intentional. At second period, things escalated. Mr. Kessler's civics class was full when Chloe slid into her seat, 2 rows in front of Jade. The teacher hadn't even spoken yet when Chloe turned around. You think this is over? She hissed, voice low but sharp. Jade didn't blink. What are you talking about? You and your little stunt yesterday. Getting your gangster uncle or whatever to play bodyguard? Cute. He's not my uncle. Whatever. Just know I'm not scared of you. Then why are you whispering? A few students nearby turned their heads. Jade saw them out of the corner of her eye, how they were watching now, not with amusement, but with something closer to curiosity, with doubt, And in Chloe's world, doubt was a crack in the throne. Chloe turned away quickly, her jaw clenched tight. By lunch, things took another turn. Jade had just sat down at her usual spot in the far corner of the cafeteria, tray balanced on her lap, when she heard a sharp voice pierce the air. That's her. The voice belonged to a boy in a Hawthorne football hoodie, Braden, one of Chloe's loyal orbiters. She's the one whose daddy thinks he's Tony Montana. A laugh spread across the table. A few others leaned in, grinning. Should we be scared, Jade? One girl said mockingly. Gonna have us whacked if we don't say hi? Jade stood up. She didn't say anything at first. She just looked at them. Calm. Unshaken. But it was in that moment Principal Harland walked in. He wasn't alone. Beside him stood a man in a dark gray suit, close-cropped hair, sharp jaw, and eyes that scanned the cafeteria like he was assessing a threat. Jade went pale. It was Dante Monroe. Her father. He was supposed to stay out of sight. Miss Monroe! Principal Harlan called across the cafeteria, his voice clipped. May we speak with you in my office? Every fork froze mid-air. Jade didn't flinch. She placed her tray back on the table and walked toward them, heart pounding so loudly she could barely hear her own steps. In the office, she didn't sit. Neither did her father. What are you doing here? She said under her breath. Dante didn't answer right away. He just nodded at Principal Harland, who cleared his throat and excused himself quickly. Once the door closed, Dante finally turned to her. I heard a girl laid hands on you, he said calmly. That was yesterday. Doesn't matter when. You said you wouldn't get involved. I didn't. 3 Escalades pulled into my school, Dad. You absolutely got involved. He smirked just a little. Technically, they didn't get out. Jade exhaled sharply. That's not the point. You made me a target. Chloe's twice as vicious now. She'll back down. She won't. People like her don't back down. They go for the jugular when they feel cornered. Dante's face softened, barely. I taught you to stand tall, not to be silent. I was standing tall before this, she snapped. Now it just looks like I had you fight my battles. There was a long pause. Then he said, quieter. Is that such a bad thing? Jade swallowed hard. I want to be strong because I am strong, not because people are afraid of you. Dante studied her. You are strong, but sometimes strength doesn't mean doing it all alone. Sometimes it means letting people remember who they're dealing with. Jade didn't answer. Outside the office, Chloe watched from the hallway. Her arms were folded, her jaw tight. Her dad still wasn't replying. Her friends had stopped laughing. Something was shifting, and she didn't like it. She pulled out her phone and opened her notes app. She started typing fast, her eyes burning. If Jade Monroe wanted to play this game, she was going to learn that money and reputation weren't the only weapons at Chloe Whitman's disposal. And she had just begun to reload. The rumors didn't fade. They multiplied. By Wednesday, everyone at Hawthorne High knew 2 things for sure. Chloe Whitman had slapped Jade Monroe, and Jade's dad had shown up the next day with a convoy of black SUVs and eyes that could freeze time. What they didn't know, what Jade was desperate to keep that way, was who her father really was. Because no one needed to know that Dante Monroe wasn't just her dad. He was the head of one of the most feared underground syndicates on the East Coast. He never appeared in newspapers. He didn't give interviews. But anyone who mattered knew his name. And those who didn't learned it quickly, usually the hard way. Jade had worked for years to keep that part of her life separate. Her mother had died when she was 9, and from that moment on, She'd lived between two worlds. The quiet, determined girl who got straight A's and blended into hallways, and the daughter of a man who had more enemies than friends, whose empire stretched from Miami to Montreal. But now, because of one arrogant girl and one reckless punch, the lines were beginning to blur. In chemistry class, Jade sat at her lab table, carefully avoiding eye contact with the cluster of girls who kept stealing glances at her from across the room. One of them leaned over to another and whispered something behind a cupped hand. The other one's eyes went wide. Then they both looked back at Jade, curious, uneasy, a little excited. Jade didn't react. She couldn't afford to. Mrs. Lacey began writing equations on the whiteboard. The room grew quiet again. But just as she turned around, the door opened with a loud creak. Everyone looked. It was Principal Harland, and behind him, Detective Simone Vega. Jade's stomach tightened. "Miss Monroe," Harland said, voice stiffer than usual. "Come with us." She rose without a word. The hallway felt 10 times longer than usual as she walked beside them, their footsteps echoing. When they reached the conference room, Vega closed the door behind them and folded her arms. "Do you know who I am, Jade? I've seen you on campus before. I'm the district's school liaison officer. I'm here because there's concern you're affiliated with people who pose a danger to students." Jade's heart skipped. "I haven't done anything. We're not accusing you of anything yet, but some parents are unsettled. After what happened Monday, and especially after what happened Tuesday. My dad picked me up. That's not illegal. Your dad arrived with armed men in bulletproof vehicles. You're not helping your case." Harlan stayed quiet, avoiding Jade's eyes. "So what?" she asked. "You want me to apologize for who my father is?" Vega leaned forward. "We want to know who he is." Jade hesitated. She could lie. She could say he worked in security, or in international logistics. The kind of vague answer that satisfied nosy neighbors and kept teachers from asking too many questions. But Vega wouldn't buy that, and she didn't seem like someone who could be scared off easily. So Jade didn't lie. "He's private, and yes, he's involved in powerful circles, but he doesn't hurt people without reason. You just told me he's dangerous. I told you he's protective. There's a difference." Harlan shifted uncomfortably. Vega narrowed her eyes. "Look," Jade said, soft but firm. "I didn't ask for this. I didn't make Chloe hit me. I didn't ask for anyone to record it. And I didn't ask for my dad to show up. But I'm not going to apologize for how I was raised, or for surviving in a world where people like her think they can get away with anything." The room went still. Vega tapped her fingers once against the table, then leaned back in her chair. "That's not what this is about." "Yes, it is," Jade snapped. "If my last name was Whitman or Harrington, you wouldn't be asking these questions. You'd be asking how I'm doing, if I felt safe. But instead, you're treating me like a threat." Vega didn't respond right away. She studied Jade a long moment. Then finally she said, "You're dismissed." Back in the hallway, Jade didn't return to class. She walked to the courtyard instead, needing space to breathe. But just as she rounded the corner, she came face to face with Chloe. Of course. "I heard you had a meeting," Chloe said, arms crossed, one foot cocked like she owned the whole sidewalk. "What do you want?" "I want to know what game you're playing." Jade exhaled. "I'm not playing a game, Chloe." "You hit me. I stood my ground. That's it." "You think you can win just because your dad scared a few people. That's temporary. It always fades. And you, people like you don't get to stay on top." Jade's jaw tightened. "People like me?" "Yeah. You hide behind a name. You think you're tough because someone else has power." But you're still the same quiet little nothing who showed up here with your thrift store jacket and no friends. For the first time, Jade stepped forward. Not aggressive, not loud, just certain. You're right about one thing, she said. I did show up here quiet. Alone, trying not to make waves. But that girl's gone. Chloe smirked. Is that a threat? No. It's a warning. Chloe's face twitched. Jade leaned in. You've spent your life thinking no one would ever push back. That you could hit, humiliate, and walk away untouched. But now the rules changed, and I'm not scared of you anymore. Then she walked past her. Chloe stood frozen in place, but her silence wasn't victory. It was panic. Because for the first time in her life, someone wasn't playing by her rules. The first blow came fast and without warning. It wasn't Chloe's hand this time. It was a message. Anonymous, untraceable. Just 10 words sent to Jade's school email late at night. We know who your father is. You're not safe here. Jade stared at the screen, heart pounding. She was sitting at the kitchen table, the hum of the refrigerator the only sound in their small apartment. The lights were dim. Her dad wasn't home. As usual, his business kept him out late, and Monica, his closest lieutenant, had left just minutes earlier after dropping off a sealed envelope and a look that said, "You don't want to know what's inside." The message glowed back at her. Cold, simple, sharp as a knife. Someone was digging. Someone was threatening. And not just her, but the walls she had spent years building to keep two worlds apart. Jade didn't sleep that night. She sat up, back pressed to the wall, eyes locked on the front door, waiting. Just in case. By morning, her exhaustion had hardened into something sharper. Resolve. She didn't tell her dad. She didn't want him to burn down the school. Literally or metaphorically. She needed to handle this her way, without blood. At Hawthorne High, the tension was different now. The whispering wasn't curious anymore. It was fearful. Students didn't look at her the same way. They stepped aside in the hallway. Teachers stuttered when calling her name. Even Chloe seemed to vanish for most of the day, but Jade knew silence was just the surface, and underneath, something darker was brewing. It surfaced that afternoon during gym. Coach Pritchard had divided the class into teams for a basketball scrimmage. Jade wasn't focused. She ran, passed, defended, but her mind was 10 steps ahead. On the email, on Chloe, on who might have sent it. She didn't notice the subtle looks exchanged across the court. Not until it happened. As Jade went up for a rebound, a body slammed into her midair. Hard. She hit the floor with a thud that echoed across the gym. She gasped. The wind knocked clean out of her. Pain bloomed in her ribs. Laughter followed. Not from everyone. Just a few boys in the back, and one girl near the wall. Chloe. Coach blew the whistle. That's a foul! The boy who hit her, Dylan Graves, shrugged and smirked. Didn't see her there, my bad. Lies, it wasn't just a foul. It was planned, calculated, a message delivered through muscle instead of words. Jade stood up slowly, wincing. Coach asked if she was okay. She nodded. Said nothing, but inside her fire reignited. This wasn't high school drama anymore. This was a warning shot, and she was done playing defense. Later that day, Jade walked the school's empty back hallway toward the library. She knew Chloe would be there. She also knew Chloe thought she was untouchable, but Jade wasn't that same quiet girl anymore. She stepped into the library and spotted her immediately, sitting with Dylan and another girl, sipping a caramel iced latte like it was a throne room, not a study space. Their eyes met. Chloe arched an eyebrow. Looking for the kids section? Jade didn't smile. Instead, she walked straight up to the table, calm, centered, and dropped something on the desk between them. It was a printed copy of the email. Chloe's smirk twitched. "You sent it, didn't you?" Jade said, voice low, firm. "You couldn't beat me with words." "Couldn't beat me with a slap. So now you're trying to scare me." Chloe leaned back. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "You're sloppy." "You used the school's proxy server. Thought that would cover your tracks. But you didn't know I built firewalls better than our entire IT department." Dylan shifted uncomfortably. "I didn't say anything," he muttered. "Didn't have to," Jade replied, without looking at him. Chloe leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "Let's say I did send it. What are you going to do about it? Cry to your daddy? Get him to make me disappear?" "No," Jade said. "I'm going to make you irrelevant." Chloe blinked. "You think being feared means power." "But real power? It's when people listen without force. When you walk into a room and no one dares question why you're there." Jade paused, then added, "You had that once. But now, they're just afraid of what you'll do next. Not because you're strong, but because you're unpredictable. Weak." The words hit like a slap. Chloe stood. "You don't get to talk to me like that." "I do," Jade said, stepping in closer, their faces inches apart. "Because I earned my place here." "You bought yours, and the bill's coming due." For a moment, no one said anything, just the buzz of the overhead lights and the turning of a page somewhere in the distance. Then Jade turned and walked away. No threats, no raised voice. Just truth. But she knew it wasn't over. This wasn't the end of Chloe Whitman. It was the beginning of her unraveling. By Friday, Hawthorne High wasn't just buzzing, it was on edge. Something had shifted since the library confrontation. Word traveled fast in their world, and even those who hadn't seen what went down between Jade and Chloe could feel it, like a storm rolling in. Everyone was holding their breath, waiting for the lightning to strike. But no one, not even Jade, could have predicted how far Chloe would go next. The warning signs were there. Chloe had been quieter than usual. Her group of loyal followers thinned. Even Dylan started keeping his distance. She was slipping, and she knew it. Power had always come easily to Chloe, until Jade Monroe made it clear she wasn't afraid. So Chloe decided to remind everyone why she was feared in the first place. It started with whispers. By second period, the rumors turned to screenshots. Private text messages, allegedly from Jade, filled with cruel language, racial slurs, and even threats, circulating through airdrop like wildfire. Students stared at Jade in the hallway. Teachers whispered in the break room. It was a setup, obviously. But it didn't matter, because people didn't wait for the truth. They reacted to the noise. Jade's phone buzzed nonstop. Calls from classmates, angry DMs, even a few parents commenting on school message boards. She sat frozen in her desk during English, her mind racing. Then, mid-lesson, Mr. Carrington's voice cut through the tension. "Jade Monroe, Principal Harland would like to see you." Again. She stood up without a word and followed the hall monitor to the office, every step echoing like a drumbeat in her chest. When she walked into Harland's office, he wasn't alone. Simone Vega was there, so was a counselor and the assistant principal. A full table of authority, all staring at her like she was on trial. "What's going on?" Jade asked calmly, even though her throat was dry. Harland gestured for her to sit. "We've received disturbing reports this morning, messages shared with the student body. language that violates our code of conduct. They're fake. We'll investigate that, Vega said. But the screenshots look real. I didn't write them. Can you prove that? Harlan asked. Jade stared at him. Can Chloe prove I did? No one responded. That's what I thought, she said. So either this is an actual investigation or it's just a show to make the angry parents feel better. Harlan stiffened. Vega's eyes narrowed, not in offense, but in evaluation. Miss Monroe, the assistant principal cut in, you've become a disruptive presence in this school. Even if you didn't write those texts, your presence is creating tension. Jade blinked. So what are you saying? That I should disappear to make everyone else comfortable? We're saying, Vega said slowly, that maybe now's the time to consider transferring. That was it. That was the moment Jade realized exactly what game they were playing. They wanted her gone. Didn't matter that she was the one who'd been assaulted. Didn't matter that someone forged messages. In their eyes, she was the variable causing chaos. And they wanted to restore their precious order. She stood up, her voice clear and cutting. If I leave, it's not because I'm scared. It's because I'm letting you reveal who you really are. Jade, Harlan warned, I suggest you... No, I'm done listening to suggestions from people who never protected me. She walked out, head high, back straight. But inside, her fury burned. Outside the office, Monica was waiting. She didn't say a word, just gave Jade one look and nodded. They left together in silence, the weight of everything unspoken stretching between them until they reached the car. Once inside, Monica finally spoke. I told your father. Jade's eyes snapped up. You what? You should have told him yourself. But now it's too late. He'll overreact. He already has. Jade groaned. Monica, I was handling it. Monica looked at her, serious. You think you were. But you underestimated how deep this goes. This isn't just about a bully anymore. This is a coordinated hit. Digital reputation destruction. It's not a kid's game, Jade. Someone's pulling strings. Jade stared out the window, her voice quiet. Then let me pull back. Monica shook her head. You don't pull back from people like this. You expose them. That night, Jade didn't sleep. She stayed up scouring code, metadata, timestamps. The messages were posted anonymously, but they weren't perfect. She spotted the inconsistencies, the overlapping fonts, mismatched shadows. Then she found the key. A deleted draft left in the shared student Google Drive. It was Chloe's account. Probably an accident. Or maybe arrogance. By 4 a.m., Jade had everything she needed. Evidence, screenshots, and a full report. But she wasn't going to Harlan. She was going public. By sunrise, a new link was circulating. Jade's voice, her words, her evidence. Her story. She didn't beg for sympathy. She presented facts. And in less than 2 hours, the narrative flipped. Hard. Comments flooded in. Support, shock, outrage. Even students who'd never spoken to her started reposting. A few teachers quietly emailed her their thanks. The student newspaper picked it up. Then, an anonymous tip reached the school board. By noon, Chloe Whitman was called into the main office. And Jade. She sat outside on the bench, eyes watching the blue sky, finally breathing without weight on her chest. Not because it was over, but because, for the first time, she was in control. Taki saw the video leaked just before lunch, security camera footage, grainy but clear enough. It captured the moment Chloe shoved Jade into the lockers 2 weeks ago. The angle didn't catch the full blow, but it caught the intent. the sneer, and the sound. That sound, the sharp thud of impact followed by the unmistakable silence in the hallway. Someone had uploaded it to a burner account on TikTok. No caption, no filter. Just the truth, played on loop. Within 15 minutes, the comment section exploded. I thought Jade made it up. This is insane. She really hit her like that? And the school did nothing? Nah, Chloe's done for. By the time Jade walked into the cafeteria, heads were already turning. Not with the same judgment as before, but with something different. Uncertainty, curiosity, even guilt. The same students who had whispered about her in hallways were now too ashamed to meet her eyes. She sat alone, calm, waiting, because she knew something no one else did. Her father was coming. That morning, before school, Jade had come clean, fully. For the first time in her life, she told Marcus Monroe everything. The bullying, the texts, the fake screenshots. The slap, the silence from the staff, all of it. And she watched the calm fade from his face like a tide pulling away from the shore. He didn't yell, didn't throw things. He just sat still, hands steepled, the quiet rage in his eyes building second by second. When she finished, there was a long pause. Then, "Give me names." She hesitated. "Dad." I said, "Give me the names." Now, hours later, Jade watched the front doors swing open. He didn't come alone. 2 black SUVs parked in the fire lane, hazard lights blinking. Out stepped Marcus Monroe, impeccably dressed, sunglasses on, black leather gloves in his hand. 3 men followed him, broad-shouldered. Silent, suited, not bodyguards, enforcers. The kind of men who never asked for a second meeting. A hush swept the cafeteria like a chill wind. Students stopped mid-bite. Phones lowered. Conversations died. Monica entered moments later, not with hesitation but with purpose. She wasn't here to clean up Marcus's mess. This time she was with him. A team. Principal Harland was already waiting at the main office, alerted by the front desk. "Mr. Monroe," Harland greeted, forcing a smile. "We weren't expecting—" "Obviously," Marcus interrupted. "Perhaps we can set up a meeting next week." "No, we're doing this now." Harland hesitated. "We have protocols." Marcus stepped closer, just enough to shrink the distance between courtesy and warning. "You think I care about your protocols after you let my daughter get assaulted, humiliated, and almost expelled based on fake screenshots?" Harland swallowed. Monica stepped forward. "We have a folder prepared. Screenshots, metadata, timestamps, including the original drive file linking Chloe Whitman's account to the fabricated texts. And now this." Marcus tossed a USB drive on the counter. "Security footage. Don't worry, we didn't get it illegally, just faster than your lazy staff." Vega entered next, and for the first time since her arrival, she looked rattled. "Mr. Monroe," she said, "I can assure you this is being taken seriously." Marcus tilted his head. "You sure about that?" "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you tried to force my daughter out to keep your donors comfortable." No one spoke. "Let me be clear," Marcus continued. "You're going to suspend Chloe Whitman. Today, you're going to issue a public statement correcting the school's handling of this matter, and you're going to ensure no teacher or administrator retaliates against my daughter for exposing the truth." Vega looked to Harland. Harland looked to the floor. Monica added, "And we want a full internal review of the disciplinary policies, especially where it concerns race and retaliation." "And if not?" Marcus asked, voice low. "We go public," Monica said. We know how to move headlines. Marcus leaned in slightly. And I promise you, I've buried scandals with more heat than this. But if it's my daughter, I don't bury. I burn. Harlan nodded stiffly. Consider it done. Back in the cafeteria, Jade's phone buzzed. She opened it. Email from the school. We acknowledge the mishandling of recent incidents involving student Jade Monroe. We are initiating a formal investigation and disciplinary process for those responsible, including Chloe Whitman. Then another ping. Chloe had deactivated all her social accounts, and another. Dylan posted a story. Didn't realize I was defending a bully. My bad. And another. A group of students approached Jade's table. They didn't speak right away. Just stood there, awkward. Then one girl, Emma from Chem Lab, sat beside her. I was wrong, she said. About you. Jade looked at her, then shrugged. Everyone was. Emma gave a small smile. Not anymore. The others nodded, unsure but sincere. Jade didn't smile back. She didn't need to, because this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of the reckoning. When Monday came, the world didn't return to normal. It turned upside down. Jade arrived at Hawthorne High not as a victim, but as a name that now carried weight. Weight no one had expected from a girl who used to walk the halls unnoticed. Some of it was admiration. Some, silent curiosity. Others avoided her altogether, afraid of what she now represented. Power without permission. She didn't care. The only thing Jade wanted now was justice, not just for herself, but for every other kid who'd been forced into silence. That morning she walked with a different posture. She wasn't alone anymore, and she wasn't afraid of being seen. At her locker, she noticed it first, how Madison, one of Chloe's former sidekicks, suddenly offered a nod instead of an eye roll. How Coach Brenner, who used to barely acknowledge her, gave her a slight, respectful glance. Something had shifted, and it wasn't just the leaked footage or Chloe's suspension. It was what came after. The tip-off. That weekend, someone had reached out to her anonymously. A junior, scared to speak publicly, sent Jade a message. Check the yearbook archive. Harlan's been hiding more than just Chloe's record. She didn't ignore it. On Sunday, with her mom's help, she gained access to the school's internal system and found it. Records of other students, mostly Black and Latino, whose disciplinary actions were quietly escalated for minor offenses. Missing lunch detention turned into suspensions. Complaints never investigated. Meanwhile, Chloe had 3 previous complaints swept under the rug. Jade wasn't shocked. She was furious. She printed the records. Compiled the names. She wasn't just going after Chloe anymore. She was going after the machine that allowed Chloe to thrive. That morning, she met with Simone Vega. Not to complain, to negotiate. I have files, Jade said, sliding the folder across the desk. Names, dates, incidents, all ignored. Vega, usually unreadable, raised an eyebrow as she flipped through the first few pages. Her voice was quiet. You compiled all this? I didn't need to. Your own database did. And what do you want, Ms. Monroe? Systemic change, Jade said, her voice unwavering. A real equity audit. Third party, transparent. And I want the Student Equity Board reinstated with real voting power on policy changes. Vega sat back, assessing her. And if we don't? Jade gave a small smile. Then the internet sees this. I don't bluff, Miss Vega, not anymore. It wasn't just a threat. She had already scheduled a meeting with a journalist from a local education watchdog blog. Jade had done her research. She knew how to play their game now. Vega was silent for a moment longer. Then, with a tight breath, "I'll bring this to the board tonight." "I'll be there," Jade said, standing. "With more students. You'll want to have chairs ready." Word spread like a match to dry grass. By 6 p.m., the school board meeting was packed. Students, parents, local reporters. Some teachers sat near the back, unsure if they should support Jade publicly, but present all the same. Jade stood before the board like she belonged there. She presented her findings calmly and clearly. No theatrics. Just facts. Harlan sat in the corner, lips pressed tight. When the first parent started asking about the policy failures, he shifted in his seat. Then came the twist. A parent stood up, Ms. Rivera, whose son had been expelled the year before over a vandalism accusation that was never proven. She pointed to the file Jade had shown, her son's name, his punishment, and a blank page where an investigation should have been. "He's never been the same," she said, her voice cracking. "And now I know why." Another parent stood. Then a former student, a teacher, people Jade had never met, all stepping forward, giving names, sharing receipts. It was no longer about her, it was about all of them. The board had no choice but to act. They voted unanimously to suspend Principal Harlan pending review. An interim head would be named. The equity audit was approved on the spot. But the real victory wasn't the vote. It was what came next. Jade left the meeting to find Chloe standing at the back of the lot. Alone. No more entourage. No smirk. Just a trembling hand clutching her phone, her eyes puffy like she hadn't slept. "You got what you wanted," Chloe said quietly. "No," Jade replied. "I got what was right." Chloe looked at her like she wanted to argue, but the fight was gone. "I didn't think it would matter," she whispered. "I didn't think anyone would believe you." "They didn't," Jade said, voice calm. "Until I made them." Chloe looked away, ashamed. Jade didn't gloat. She didn't spit venom. She just turned and walked toward her mom's car, the night air crisp on her face, her breath steady. Monica waited behind the wheel. "You ready?" Jade nodded. "Always." As the car pulled away from the school, Jade glanced back one last time, not to relive the pain, but to remember the moment it all changed. This wasn't the end. It was the storm before the rebuild, and this time she was laying the foundation herself. The courtroom-style boardroom was packed, not just with students and teachers, but with voices that had been silent for too long. Jade sat at the front row beside her mother, Monica, while representatives from the Department of Education reviewed the findings of the equity audit. It had been 2 months since her confrontation with Principal Harlan and Chloe's suspension, but tonight wasn't about punishment. It was about what came next. The board member at the center of the table cleared his throat. After reviewing over 40 separate cases across 3 years, our independent panel has concluded that significant systemic bias existed under the previous administration. Disciplinary actions were inconsistently enforced, and student voices were systematically ignored. A murmur moved through the room. Some gasped, others nodded. Monica gently squeezed Jade's hand. "Effective immediately," the board member continued, "Hawthorne High will restructure its disciplinary process. A student rights council will be formed, and student representatives, selected by peer vote, will sit on the new advisory board." And then, he looked directly at Jade. "We thank Miss Jade Monroe for her courage, for standing not just for herself, but for those who couldn't." Applause followed. Not polite, not obligated. Real. But it was what happened after the meeting that would stick in Jade's memory. As she made her way out into the cool night air, someone called her name. It wasn't a teacher. It wasn't a student. It was Chloe. She stood at the edge of the sidewalk, no entourage, wearing a plain gray hoodie with the school logo, far from her designer jackets and perfectly done hair. Jade considered walking past her, but she didn't. "I heard you're running for the Student Equity Board," Chloe said quietly. Jade raised an eyebrow. "You gonna smear me again?" Chloe shook her head. "No, I'm actually here to say something else." Jade waited. "I was raised to think power meant control," Chloe continued, her voice cracking slightly. "And I used that to hurt people like you, because it made me feel safe, like I mattered." "You do matter," Jade said. "But not like that." "I know." Chloe looked down, then up again. "I'm trying to learn. I even joined a mediation group. Not because I expect people to forgive me, just I don't want to be that person anymore." There was a long pause. Then Jade offered something unexpected, a nod. "Change starts when you stop making it about yourself," she said, "and start listening." "I'm trying," Chloe said, "and I wanted to ask, could I support your campaign?" Jade's jaw clenched slightly. It would have been easy to say no, easy to let Chloe drown in the shame of her past. But easy wasn't how change worked. "I'm not doing this for you," Jade said, voice firm. "But if you show up for the right reasons, show up for others, not to fix your image, then you can help." Chloe blinked. "Okay." As Chloe walked away, Jade turned toward her mother waiting by the car, her face lit by the parking lot lamp. Monica smiled, small, but full of pride. In the days that followed, Jade's story spread beyond the walls of Hawthorne High. A local news station picked it up, then a podcast, then a viral tweet. She didn't expect fame, but what she did with the spotlight was more powerful than any headline. She launched Students First, a peer-led initiative focused on supporting underrepresented voices in public schools. She spoke at a City Hall education panel. She even testified before a school reform committee alongside her mom, but her proudest moment came weeks later. It was the first meeting of the new Student Rights Council. As Jade stood at the podium looking out at students of all backgrounds, some shy, some defiant, all finally heard, she knew something real had changed. Not just the rules, but the people. Jade took a breath and spoke. "We're not here because we want revenge," she said. "We're here because we believe schools should lift people up, not break them down. This isn't just about Hawthorne. It's about every student who's ever been told they don't belong." Her voice didn't waver. "We belong. And we're not asking for space anymore. We're claiming it." The room erupted in applause, not for a performance, but for a movement. Jade stepped down from the podium, her heart steady, her mind clear. This was never just her fight, but it had become her legacy. If this story moved you, if you believe that power comes from persistence, not privilege, then share it. Let someone know they're not alone. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel for more stories like Jade's. Stories that prove you don't need to be born into power to change the world. You just need the courage to rise.